News Radio 700 WLW.
So the July inflation numbers are out. Not bad. Core CPI up. Not bad. But there is an overwhelming belief in this country that the economy is not doing good. And, you know, the economy is like anything else. It's how it affects you. Fuel prices are out of control. We know why. And unless the president wants to have some quick resolution, in other words, you know, annihilate Iran, take over their oil fields and start shipping it over here tax-free, I don't sense that that's going to change anytime soon. The economy, though, lost 23,000 jobs in July. And payroll gains in May and June were revised downward. So that seems to me that it deserves some attention. But yet we have the Senate. The Senate has recessed until the middle of next month. Why does a senator need so much vacation? They don't work when they're actually on the job. Somebody that's as equally concerned as I am about all of this is standing by to join us. There are people that understand numbers. They understand things like GDP and inflation and wage growth and core GDP and core CPI and all the other alphabet numbers you want to put in there. There are others, though, that not only understand it, they can explain this stuff. So mere mortals like you and I can understand why we are in a position that we are in. And that, of course, is our great economic growth strategist from out by our nation's capital, Dan Varroney. How are you on this glorious Saturday?
I am terrific, and it's wonderful to be talking with you again.
I'm glad you're here now. You might have heard what I just said. July inflation up 0.1%, annually down to 3.4%. Core GPI up 0.2%, 12-month core 2.5%. Energy fell, although I figure in August it's going to go up. Anyway, it was at 1.5%. I mean, these core inflation numbers, they're basically benign numbers, right? They're basically pre-Iran war numbers. Now, of course, everything can go up in a heartbeat, as you well know, but nobody really feels good that I talk to about where the economy is, where there are some good stories to tell, but I think they're getting overwhelmed a little bit. What about you?
So what I think is that there are a number of different storylines when it comes to the economy. Clearly, right now, wages are not passing, muster, right? So as we all go to the store, we're not buying as much as we could a year and 2 years ago and 5 years ago and so on. And that's a big challenge. But what I want to share with you is that there's a part of things in the economy that are going really well. We're generating a lot of investment productivity. And what I'm excited about is that productivity in time is going to lead to more jobs and better paying jobs. And I think that's very good news. The other thing that doesn't go widely reported is that small businesses, meaning companies, let's say 50 and fewer, have added somewhere between 330 and 340,000 jobs since January. That's good news as well. But on the other side of it, hourly wages aren't keeping pace with inflation. That's the pain part. So why is that? Let's talk about why that is. So at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that fuel, gasoline, runs through almost every product category in the U.S. economy. Everything is delivered from somewhere to somewhere else. And that's what we're experiencing when we go to buy a new shirt, when we, go to buy a food at the food store and so on and so forth, and gasoline. But they're all interconnected. But what I'm going to suggest to you is I think that things are not as bad as we might think they are. I think they are a bit better than they were several months ago. And one of the reasons why is that people have seen a higher average tax refund, almost $3,300, up almost 11.5% year over year. Wages are a bit higher in the paychecks. And the reason why is because the tax brackets on a federal basis have been lowered starting January 1 of this year. So there is some good news. Prices are still high, but that really is all connected to the price of fuel.
Right. And a couple of things on that. Reality is not necessarily reality. Perception is reality. And if you perceive that you're paying more at a grocery store, if you know that you're paying more at a gasoline pump, your perception of the economy is this sucks, and memories are short. And we can't remember how bad fuel was under Joe Biden, and we can't remember how much the price of eggs and bread and whatnot was in the waning days of the Biden administration. But as you know, Dan, that's the perception for a lot of people who are not investing in the stock market.
Completely agree. So the question is, are there things that we can do to make things better? So one of the things that I suggested this week in two different op-ed articles, one is related to capital gains. So let's say on the sale of a home, you're not paying on the inflation price, you're paying on the real value. If a manufacturer is a small business selling something, you're not paying on the inflation price. The president said he's got that under consideration. I think it's good news, and I think it can help. The other thing that I think that can help, and I think this is a long-term solution, Ken, and I'm pretty sure that you and I have talked about this over the last 6 or 7 months. We have got to get permitting reform enacted, and why that's important to all of us and all of your listeners is we've got to increase our refining capacity here in the United States. We've not increased our refining capacity, I think, since the late 1970s. And for an old guy like me, that seems like a long time ago. What permitting reform does is that it expedites the approval processes and the ability to build those refineries. The other thing that permitting reform will do for us, meaning we will be able to get to more gas sources far more quickly. I think there's other opportunities to do more onshore, on-site domestic drilling. I think that we can extract more from Alaska, for example. So there's opportunities that I think that we can take advantage of, that we can leverage in what I would call a short term to make things more stable for all of us in the long term.
I agree 100%. But if I'm sitting with President Trump and the smart guys he's got in his cabinet around him, they're probably telling him, look, Mr. President, we're on a glide path. The runway is in sight to November of 2026. And if we don't do something drastic right now, and I'm not suggesting for a moment we dip into the strategic reserve, because that's already at historic lows right now. That's a whole different topic. But you've got to do something, because this is where politics and economics intersect. You got to figure out what's going on in Iran. You're doing a dance with the devil here in terms of trying to get a negotiated peace settlement. But in reality, there's only one thing that Iran and the 8th or 9th level of mullahs that are in charge now, or the RGC, there's only one thing they know, and that's strength. And it's not going to come through some signed piece of paper. My point in all this is, unless he gets this thing, I'm speaking of Trump, fixed in some way, shape, or form between now and when early voting begins, he's going to lose the House, could lose the Senate, and the first thing the House is going to do will have nothing to do with the economy. It will have everything to do to impeach Donald Trump one more time. He has to know that. So this is where I hit the shock point for me. If he knows that, and other people know that, and the economy is where it is, on a perceived basis certainly, where's the action on all of this? I don't need long run. If I'm him, I need something in the next 60 days.
So I think that Iran is a challenge. I think that Treasury Secretary Bessent has said a number of times in the last 48 to 72 hours that they're applying unprecedented sanctions against the government of Iran. Do I think that's going to work? I have a high degree of skepticism, because I think this is these folks are determined. I think they've dug in their heels and they're going to stay there. So I think it strikes me that we should start thinking about things that we might do for the American taxpayer.
I agree. And I think job one, and you pointed out this when you sent me this article in the Washington Examiner, is Congress should have canceled this August recess. But Dan, look,
Yes.
I lived in Washington, D.C., worked in Washington, D.C. for 4 years back in the 90s. My son went to high school in the heart of the district, about 2 blocks from the Capitol. Now, I would visit him from time to time. I'd see a lot of staffers down there. Never once did I bump into any, at that point, sitting senator or anybody that was in the House of Representatives at that time. You couldn't find these people with a search warrant. The Senate works basically two and a half days a week when it's in session.
Mm-hmm.
They're some of the laziest human beings in the world. Then they come back and go, I got to talk to my constituents. Well, okay, I get that. You need the whole month of August. Congress should have canceled the August recess on the heels of this July jobs report and get busy on doing things to strengthen the economy. But Dan, you live there. You know, getting Congress, both sides, to agree on where to go to lunch on any given day, let alone how to fix the economy, is kind of a fool's game. But at least give the semblance like you're trying to work on things that are affecting the American people. They should be on the job right now. I know you agree with that 100%, don't you?
I absolutely agree with that. And it was really shocking to me when I heard the Senate gavel, slam for adjournment. Honestly, I think it takes a lot of audacity to leave town knowing what the situation is in this country. And I think that the House and Senate need to come back here, never mind campaigning and doing whatever it is they think they need to do or going on any foreign travel. They need to come back here, and the leadership needs to go to the White House, or maybe they all need to go to Camp David and say, we need to come up with 2 or 3 things that are going to make things better for the American people, and then go and round up the votes on both sides of the aisle and make it happen by Labor Day. But the Democrats, at this point, are starting to feel emboldened that they think that they've got a win in their sights. And they're saying, why should we do anything to help the president? And my answer is that because you all represent all the American people, not just the Democrat Party.
Right. That goes back to the core of the problem. We don't send our best and our brightest to Washington, D.C. We send the people that can raise the most money. We send a lot of lawyers. And unfortunately, and I know you're writing law, so you want lawyers, but it's just not populated with enough other people that come from other walks of life that can temper some of these. There are a million lawyers running around thinking they all have a great idea. There's got to be some other people that make up that particular body that would pull back some of the law minds that are there and say, well, wait a minute, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that doesn't help me in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, that's my soapbox. So let's look at the next 60 days, because I agree with you. I think particularly if the DSA gets control of anything in Congress and they try to raise or find enough votes to raise the minimum wage to like $20, $25 an hour, it's going to kill small businesses. I don't think that's a recipe for success.
It's absolutely going to kill small businesses. Yeah. It's going to annihilate small businesses. Small businesses are the job creation engine in this country.
Yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, and that's where the new jobs are coming from. That would be a tremendous mistake, and we'd have even more people out of work. It would just be a huge mistake.
Right. The next 60 days are one thing, and I think what you're saying, the tax cuts that went in with the one big beautiful act, I think people are feeling pretty good about that. I'm not sure that enough people tie that back to what the president is doing because his numbers are so terrible. We'll see exactly if they improve, if he can get Iran cleaned up between now and November. But I'm just wondering how you see the next 60 days and then how you see the next 6 months going in this country, and if there is any relief, regardless of what happens in November.
So I think the trajectory that we're heading on right now is that I am absolutely energized by the amount of investment that have been made in plants and equipment as a result of the Big Beautiful Bill. I think productivity is increasing exponentially, and I think that as we get into 6 and 12 months from now, I have very strong expectations that new job opportunities will increase. The second thing that I want to say, Ken, and this is important historical perspective, Do you know that when Ronald Reagan, in his first administration, enacted his tax and spending reductions, just as a reminder, they took, and I'm not kidding, a couple of years to really take hold. It was into mid and late 1983. We're a year and a half into this. So my expectation is as we get into next year and in mid next year and late next year, my expectation is that there'll be considerably more job creation as a result of the investment that led to higher degrees of productivity.
Yeah, that was 1981, right? The Economic Recovery Tax Act lowered the, I think it lowered, as I recall, it lowered the top individual tax rate to 50%. And it went as low as 11%. I think the tax rate in 86, the Tax Reform Act in 86, I think it took that top rate down into the high 20s. It was like 29, 28%. It was, everybody called it Reaganomics, but it was common sense economics is what it is. And this country could use a hard dose of that. I agree with you 100%. Hey, Dan, we got to run. Dan Varroney. You hear him here on 700 WLW with me and others. You can find him at PotomacCore.com, because he is at the core of the Potomac region out there. Dan, stay well. You know we'll be calling. Thanks.
Thanks. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.